Whipped cream death. On June 17, 2017, Rebecca Berger was at her home in Galfing, a small commune near Mulhouse in the Alsace region of France. The 33-year-old fitness blogger and bikini competitor had built a substantial social media following through her healthy lifestyle content, and that afternoon she was in her kitchen using a metal whipped cream siphon canister, a pressurized device common in French households. As she operated the dispenser, the plastic head connecting the gas capsule to the body of the canister suddenly failed under pressure. The capsule was propelled outward at high force and struck Berger directly in the chest, over her heart. The impact triggered an immediate cardiac arrest. Emergency services were called, and firefighters managed to resuscitate her at the scene before transporting her by ambulance to Hôpital de Mulhouse. Despite intensive treatment through the night, her heart and internal injuries could not be stabilized. She died in hospital on June 18th from cardiac arrest related to the blunt chest trauma she had sustained the day before. Gendarmes from the Mulhouse area opened an inquiry into the device failure. French consumer magazine 60 Millions de Consommateurs reported that similar siphon models had already caused more than 20 serious injuries across France between roughly 2010 and 2017, including fractured ribs and facial injuries. Berger's partner posted a photo of the same model of canister on Instagram, warning followers that tens of thousands of defective whipped cream siphons remained in circulation. In the years that followed, a formal judicial investigation for involuntary homicide was opened against unknown parties in connection with the product's design and safety warnings, making her case a reference point in discussions about dangerous kitchen appliances. Lava lamp explosion. On Sunday, November 28, 2004, Philip Quinn was alone in his trailer home in Kent, Washington, a small city south of Seattle. The 24-year-old had been trying to get his lava lamp working again, and for reasons investigators never fully established, he placed the malfunctioning decorative lamp directly onto a lit stovetop burner to heat it faster. Lava lamps are designed to warm gradually, using a low-wattage light bulb mounted in the base. On an open stovetop burner, the liquid inside the sealed glass vessel heated far beyond any temperature the lamp was manufactured to withstand. Internal pressure built rapidly until approximately 2 in the afternoon, when the lamp exploded with significant force. Glass shards sprayed throughout the small kitchen, and one large fragment was driven into Quinn's chest, piercing his heart. Mortally wounded, he staggered from the kitchen into his bedroom and collapsed. Glass fragments were later found embedded in the walls around the stove, indicating the explosive force of the failure. That evening, Quinn's girlfriend was unable to reach him by phone, and his parents drove to check on him around 8 in the evening. They found shattered glass throughout the kitchen, and their son unresponsive in the back room, and immediately called 911. Kent police and emergency medical personnel arrived to a scene investigators described as resembling a small indoor blast. Toxicology results confirmed no alcohol or drug use was involved. The King County Medical Examiner classified his death as an accident, and news outlets across the country amplified the story as a warning about improvising with decorative household items never intended for open heat sources. Pressure cooker blast. On the early afternoon of August 14, 2012, Begonia Muniz was in the kitchen of her 4th-floor apartment in the Pumarín neighborhood of Gijón, in the Asturias region of northern Spain. The 36-year-old schoolteacher was approximately 5 months pregnant and was preparing a midday meal using a traditional pressure cooker on the stove, while her husband painted one of the other rooms in the flat. Around 2 in the afternoon, neighbors throughout the building heard a tremendous bang and the sound of breaking glass as the pressure cooker violently exploded while Muniz was working at the stove. The blast's force struck her directly in the head and upper body, inflicting devastating trauma. The explosion also blew out several window panes, sending glass raining down into the street below. Her husband rushed from the bedroom to find her collapsed in the kitchen amid debris and immediately raised the alarm. Shocked neighbors called emergency services. Local police, national police, and Gijón firefighters arrived quickly, securing the scene and assisting an advanced medical team, but paramedics could only certify Muniz's death on the kitchen floor. Investigators determined the explosion originated in the pressure cooker itself, rather than a gas leak, and concluded the most likely cause was a blockage or malfunction in the pressure release valve that allowed internal pressure to build until the lid was launched with lethal force. The death was classified as a domestic accident. Spanish safety articles published in subsequent years cited her case alongside a similar fatal pressure cooker explosion in Melide, Galicia, 6 years later, as examples of how an ordinary cooking vessel becomes lethal when valve maintenance and fill level limits are not strictly observed. By the way, if you find this type of content informative, I cover documented stories like these regularly on this channel, Consider subscribing if you'd like to see more. Now back to the video. Washing machine death. On Monday, September 16, 2024, Maria Silva Viana was doing laundry at the modest home in Tanquinho, Bahia State, Brazil, where she lived with and cared for her elderly parents. The 44-year-old had structured her adult life around caring for her 83-year-old mother and her father, and that day she was washing long-stored sheets and covers in an electric washing machine in the home's small laundry area. At some point during the wash cycle, a combination of standing water and exposed or loosened wiring around the machine created a live electrical hazard in the space. When Viana reached into the still-connected machine to remove the wet clothes, she received a massive electric shock and collapsed beside it, surrounded by water and tangled electrical cables. Her elderly parents heard her scream and rushed to the laundry area, finding her lying on the floor next to the washer. They and other relatives nearby attempted to help her and quickly sought emergency assistance. Viana was transported to a local hospital in Tanquinho, but doctors were unable to revive her despite resuscitation efforts. She was pronounced dead from electrocution. Bahia Civil Police opened an investigation and ordered forensic analysis to determine exactly how the electrical fault developed, with preliminary reports describing the incident as an accidental shock involving household wiring and the washing machine. Regional outlets and electrical safety experts cited her case to warn that appliances should never be touched while energized, and that suspected wiring faults must be assessed by a qualified technician before any further use. The death left her two elderly parents without the primary caregiver who had devoted her life to their welfare. Microwave foil fire. On the evening of May 23, 2023, Tommy Ruth Jackson was at home on Kolb Road in rural Sumter County, South Carolina, sharing the modest single-story house with her sister. Jackson was 67 years old. Sometime after 8:30 that evening, a resident placed a sandwich in the microwave, still wrapped in packaging that contained aluminum foil. As the microwave ran, the foil ignited a spark and the wrapper caught fire, with flames spreading rapidly from the appliance to nearby combustibles in a cluttered interior. Firefighters later stated that the home's living conditions both accelerated the fire spread and made access and rescue extremely difficult. A witness outside noticed smoke and attempted to intervene, but the fire had already grown beyond control. Emergency calls brought Sumter County Sheriff's Office deputies and fire crews racing to the scene. Deputies attempted to enter the burning structure to reach Jackson, but heavy smoke and fire conditions forced them back. Firefighters eventually knocked down enough of the blaze to access the home, located Jackson inside, and carried her to waiting EMS personnel. Advanced life support measures were performed while she was transported by ambulance to Prisma Health Toomey Hospital in Sumter, where she was later pronounced dead. An autopsy was ordered at the Medical University of South Carolina in Charleston to determine the precise cause of death. Investigators from the State Fire Marshal's Office and Sumter Fire Department concluded the fire was accidental, caused by placing foil-containing packaging inside a microwave, and that the conditions within the home significantly worsened the outcome. Multiple outlets quoted investigators stressing that metal of any kind must never be placed inside a microwave. Coffee table fall. Just after midnight on December 16, 2012, Wilmette police in the northern Chicago suburbs received a call about an injured man at a home in the 1200 block of Ashland Avenue. Officers arrived at 12:12 in the morning and found Brian C. Baker, 58 years old, conscious but bleeding heavily on the kitchen floor. Baker was the founder and president of Vester Capital, a Chicago-based wealth management firm. According to police accounts and later media reports, Baker had fallen backward onto the glass-topped coffee table in his home, shattering the tabletop into large, sharp fragments. He had then apparently moved from the living area to the kitchen, where responding officers found him with multiple wounds across his back, consistent with landing on broken glass. Wilmette Fire Department paramedics initiated intensive life-saving measures on scene and transported him to Evanston Hospital for emergency treatment. Despite rapid intervention, Baker was pronounced dead at Evanston Hospital at 12:47 in the morning, 35 minutes after police first arrived. An autopsy conducted by the Cook County Medical Examiner's Office determined he died from multiple sharp force injuries to the back, caused by the fall onto the glass table, and ruled the death an accident. Police indicated all evidence pointed to an accidental fall inside his own home, with no suspicion of foul play. His firm issued a public statement mourning the sudden loss of their founding partner. Financial press coverage used his case to highlight how glass-topped coffee tables, a fixture in millions of living rooms, can act as fields of razor-sharp fragments when a person falls through them at an awkward angle. Dishwasher knife death. One evening in 2003, Jane MacDonald was tidying up the kitchen at the manse on Dunrobin Road in Airdrie, North Lanarkshire, Scotland, where the 31-year-old student was staying with a relative. MacDonald was described by friends as fashionable and outgoing. That evening she was unloading and reloading the household dishwasher before bed, a routine task she had done countless times before. Sharp kitchen knives had been placed in the dishwasher's cutlery rack, with the blades pointing upward, a common practice in many households. At some point, while working near the open dishwasher door, MacDonald slipped on a wet patch of floor. She fell forward and her abdomen and chest came down directly onto one of the upright knife blades. The knife penetrated deeply, impaling her through the torso. She collapsed onto the kitchen floor while the blade remained lodged, causing severe internal bleeding. Reverend Sharon Colvin, the relative with whom MacDonald was staying, discovered her collapsed and immediately called emergency services. Paramedics rushed MacDonald to Monklands General Hospital, the nearest acute care facility in Airdrie. Surgeons and emergency staff worked to stabilize her, but the damage from the single deep wound proved too extensive, and she died shortly after admission. Police treated the case as a freak household accident with no third-party involvement. Safety advocates have since repeatedly cited her death as a textbook example of why knives should always be loaded blade down in dishwashers, a simple change in habit that costs nothing and eliminates the risk entirely. Electric blanket fire. In the early hours of September 20th, 2009, Jack and Mary Jean Chaston were asleep in bed at their home in Rangiora, in New Zealand's Canterbury region. Jack was 89 years old, and Mary Jean was 87. The couple had switched on their electric blanket for warmth against the cold Canterbury night. At some point while they slept, the blanket malfunctioned and ignited, beginning as a smoldering fire on the bed that grew into a room-engulfing blaze before either of them could fully react. Flames and smoke poured from the house. A passing motorist spotted the fire, stopped, and helped pull Jack, disoriented and badly affected by smoke, away from the burning property. Mary Jean remained inside. Emergency calls brought North Canterbury volunteer firefighters to the scene. Searching through thick smoke and intense heat, the first crew received incorrect information that Mary Jean was in the lounge and did not locate her immediately. When they found her unresponsive in the bedroom, they believed she showed no signs of life and, running low on air, withdrew without removing her. A senior officer later testified he was furious upon learning she had not been brought out, stating that firefighters had no right to determine whether she was dead. A second crew re-entered the structure and found Mary Jean still alive. Paramedic Rod Partington, described as appalled that she had been left in the burning house, demanded she be removed immediately. She was transported to Christchurch Hospital, where she died the following day from cardiac arrest caused by brain damage due to smoke inhalation. A fire service operational report concluded the fire originated in the electric blanket and that both Jack and Mary Jean would likely have survived had they evacuated the moment they called for help, rather than remaining inside. If you found this informative, consider subscribing so you don't miss future content. Thanks for watching.